now I'm back on it. What's this? In the face of injustice, we stand proud and tall. Police misconduct drives us up the wall. We come in all shapes and sizes, fighting to be free. Jack-booted thuggery serves to charge our battery. We are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoked a little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass. We do all the hard work at attention all the time. We may be rigid, but our justice is sublime. We vibrate with intensity, electric in our cause. When the cops don't have a warrant and they violate our laws, we are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoked a little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass.
Nice.
We're going on an adventure, guys.
I'm gonna tuck my feet on.
Hi, this is retired Sergeant Steve Miller, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
All right, we're back, I guess. That's great. We were done our introductions. We were talking about some topics. I was talking to Jimmy Lowell a little bit about, he made a comment that some of the up north cities have gotten in and they're looking for the benefits of the cannabis industry. I just wanted to kind of just discuss a little more. It's something we don't really talk about. Obviously, there's different types of benefits directly, and I just wanted to discuss for a moment the interplay of the excise tax and the sales tax and how it actually gets back to the community. In other words, the more marijuana that's sold, whether it's recreational marijuana, how does that formulate into dollars and cents for the city in the classic sense. And the point I was trying to make is, first, the point that was made was that in order for anyone to be a participant in the recreational market, they would have to opted in first for the medical market. But as we said, there's no longer any excise tax from the medical market, only from the recreational market. But the sales tax for both still exists. However, do you recall, Jamie, how that played back to the city or the township that's opted and works for either of those? For example, it's like we know in July that the state of Michigan had total sales of $109 million, right? Brisbane was just, it reports that. The question is, and 52 of it was medical, 57 of it was recreational. So if of those cities and townships that have 52, medical facilities that produce that $52 million in sales, there's a sales tax amount of a call. Let's just say 10% hypothetically. So you've got, 5 million. Is that what that would be? Or 5? What? 10% of 50 million.
That's 5.
Okay, $5 million. That would be sales tax. Let's say just for medical, and you got I don't know. Let's just make it easy. Say you got 100 cities that have medical, medical retail places. How does that come back to those 100 cities?
So first of all, it'd be a general on how it's work, what's going to happen and what the mechanisms are going to be and the numbers and that kind of stuff in the future. We'll all kind of have to wait and see. But also, in addition to the fact that some of these places are just medical, before there were any excise taxes or generating any of that kind of revenue, these places that have been going on for many years in this state have been benefits to those communities that they've operated in. So it's not just the excise tax that creates the good idea for the community to opt in or to take advantage of this opportunity. But for the MRTMA, which is the only place that has the excise tax now, the shares are by how many units of retail licenses there are, which could be a micro business or mainly the retail stores. And then the share with the county first, and then with the locals, and then there's the amount based on how many of those specific kinds of licenses that there are. So we'll see what happens for the first couple of years. The money up to $20 million is used for research for veterans, for PTSD and things like that. So
Understood. But I mean, obviously, when a city's up and running, it's going to create jobs for the, potentially people living in the city. The more people that are coming in, the, more need maybe for other types of businesses to open up. You've got
What about purchase a hamburger after
purchase a
leaving the
hamburger, so
facility?
yeah, you're going to want to eat but I just want to kind of play out some of these scenarios. It's only the retail places that the benefit of the sale of marijuana, either medically or recreationally, returns back to the city, Jimmy, right? They're not seeing a direct impact from.
yeah.
Okay, and but isn't there some revenue sharing from the sales tax that's created from the retail under the medical market that is distributed to those cities that have opted in, or does that not take place anymore?
Well, there used to be a 3% excise tax in which that stuff
All right.
took place, but that got eliminated with the passage of the MRTMA, or after it was in place for 6 months.
All right, fine. So there's so that's not coming. The 3% of the sales tax is what it is, right? So that no longer exists. So the only way that a city can now receive direct cash from the sale of marijuana is if they've opted in for recreational, meaning they had to first for medical, and then they're in a situation to receive the a percentage of the sales tax on the recreational, right? So under that scenario that I was talking about, let's just, I don't know, not trying to make it too complicated. Let's say you got, $50 million in recreational sales, and there's a sales tax of 10% and an excise tax of 3%. So we can say, if it's $50 million for the month of July, and the state made $5 million in sales tax, right, the 10%, and 3% of that $5 million is, I don't know, what is that? What's 3% of $5 million? Whatever. What does that mean? That's
It's like,
300,000 times.
50,000,
Okay, 150,000.
maybe. I don't know.
Oh, that's 3% of the excise tax. But that's I don't know how that. But so how does that work? Is the recreational opted-in city going to receive payments from that? Is that the plan? Is that the idea in principle?
Yeah, right, which has no particular designation except for about use of the locals for some of the other things. That other share of the excise revenue has a designation of transportation and education.
They can do whatever they want with it. It's not the state, right? Okay. But in what cities, if any, I mean, obviously, so a city has to opt in for recreational to receive this. And if any of the cities stepped forward that we know of that have said, you know what, this works great. We were able to buy a new flagpole for the courthouse. You know, all the
It hasn't gone on long enough to get there yet.
I don't know. I can tell you in Centerline that a lot of our festivals and city activities are sponsored by the local cannabis businesses. And
There are
That's different.
cities that will say that
No.
licensing the places has been good, and they've been great for the community.
It's been great.
But no, the excise tax hasn't come back to the communities yet.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
won't probably.
I guess my
still a
point
little
is
bit.
that cities have begun to feel the economic impact of these businesses in a positive way.
And they did in some places before any of the
that's
official statewide licensing ever came into existence.
Yeah, but the issue is, though, that, I mean, someone could sponsor this that we're talking about, but they may not have necessarily, paid for it. They may have, like, it's not from the taxes or it's not from,
No, it's not from
it's just that they had money and they want to, improve the city, and they're doing things to that effect. All right, so let's talk about some of the topics. I don't think that the rant, if I was going to rant, we'd talk about this other topic, and it's kind of an interesting time right now. I think a lot of the people are under the impression that Michigan legalized marijuana in the state of Michigan.
That was false.
Well, is it? And what does legalization mean? I mean, I think that very clearly the statute itself says that this law is intended to legalize marijuana for adults 21 and over. Any law that conflicts with this is inferior. So those are some basic principles. Indistinguishable from the MMA was that, and the recreational law, of course, is that the exemptions or the categorized individuals that found protections under the MMA was a reason why the entire state had not legalized marijuana. It was only an exemption for limited groups of people. It didn't go statewide. So anytime someone tried to argue that they had some kind of fucking right or something like that, the courts would say, well, they didn't legalize marijuana, from the original Bob Redden concurring opinion from Justice O'Connell. Nevertheless, the point was that if you don't fall within these exemptions because of your activity, and you have to be in, you're not in the class of all Michiganders. You are stepping into a specialized category that allows you to behave and be exempt if you're in compliance, and if you're not, you fall into the rest. And the argument seems to follow, despite the language I just spoke about regarding the MRTMA recreational law, that there's this concept that if you somehow do something that is prohibited or somehow do something that is not specifically articulated as allowable or permissive, then you revert back to the Controlled Substances Act. Now, that logic that I just described that was used in the MMA to say this isn't a statewide blanket of protection. The entire state didn't become medical marijuana. This is per the law, even though it passed statewide, it identified a certain class of people that will receive these exemptions. Everybody else is on their own. That's why they could search houses under People versus Anthony Brown. And but this discussion of this is different because, as I said, the language in the preamble of the MRTMA law says that this law is intended to legalize marijuana for adults over the age of 21. Period. The last section 17, as I said, says this conflict language. Any law that conflicts here loses. So, obviously, the Controlled Substance Act is in conflict, and
it specifically addresses the situations that we're talking about here.
well, for example, if someone sells marijuana or they deliver marijuana with the intention to, let's say, they deliver marijuana, and in the Controlled Substance Act, the crime is in the delivery. It's a giving up. No money needs to be exchanged. We know this from State versus McQueen. But here, under the recreational law, where they would be protected for giving it away and making the delivery, State's position, and there's apparently a work group that was put together for this to interpret the law. Jamie, did you hear about this? Apparently, the Attorney General got together a group of people, and
was Pam there? I bet
Pam was
I
there.
bet
The
Ken
Michigan
was
State
there.
Police, all the people
There was
that
an original work group that turned into a different one.
were any of those original work group people there in this decision making of how we're going to deal with the interpretation of MRTMA?
The problem is right now.
There may have been, but nobody who I don't think had the same perspective as many others of us would have in some of those situations.
Yes.
The problem is that the police and the prosecutors are forever looking for something to enforce. And it really bothers them that their enforcement options are becoming limited in regards to marijuana. It's like, well, just leave it alone then. How about this for a concept of progressive law enforcement? Let's leave this one alone and move on to other things. There's a lot of other problems out there right now to be dealt with. But this goddamn Pam and these cops, they're always looking for something to enforce.
Well, it's
Maybe
right
if there's less enforcement, then
It's right here. It's written in the law what they can enforce. And it's section 15, subsection 4. And it says that if you do certain things, like deliver marijuana, like pounds and pounds of marijuana, that you're responsible for a misdemeanor, but shall not be subject to imprisonment unless the violation was habitual, willful, and for a commercial purpose, or the violation involved violence. And that's the difference between MRTMA and the MMA, is the fact that this had a blanket statement that was intended to cover all of these outliers.
well, they're not paying attention to it.
Clearly.
Because they are charging right now under the Violation of Controlled Substances Act. A client of ours just got charged with a 7-year felony for having a little bit of, for allegedly having some extra in the vehicle. 7-year felony. Today, in the age of alleged legalization, 7-year felony. They're still putting people. Oh. And that's not the only story. What's that, Jamie?
Eric Owens from Bay City is facing an 8-year felony.
It's absolute horse shit. I mean, the people have spoken and the authorities aren't listening. And that's a problem. And they wonder why people are out rioting in the streets. There's a lot of pissed off people around right now over shit like this. We were all under the assumption when we were out trying to get this law in place that this shit wasn't going to happen anymore. Well, it's happening. It's happening. They are just taking the other law. That is what we're going to enforce. Somebody is telling them this. They're getting this guidance from somebody.
Yeah,
Some
Ken
sort of
Stuckert, I bet.
prosecutorial authority is telling them, don't worry about the new legalization law. We can just charge them under VCSA. I guarantee that's what this prosecutor told this cop in the situation with our client, based on the things I've seen in the case so far. Because when I looked on certain documents, the charge read VCSA, no bond, because it's a felony, VCSA. That's where they're calling it. That's where they're taking it. How many motions, trials, and appeals is it going to take before this sinks in, Michael?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'm looking
Because you know they're going to go right along with the cops and the prosecutors, because they all love each other and they all work together in the same building most of the time. And God, we can't hurt this police officer's feelings if we tell him he's wrong. So we'll just go ahead and let him be right. And Mr. Prosecutor will condone the behavior. And Mr. District Court Judge is certainly going to condone the behavior because they're paychecks and their staff and their whole organization at the district court relies on those funds to come in for them. Are we seeing a problem with the system? Because obviously the system is trying to get running back full again. The same old bullshit, the same old shit, different day. And they want marijuana to be illegal. So they're going to make it that way so they can go out and do all this enforcement action. It's easy. It's horse shit. The people have spoken and the authorities don't listen. So you will have people rioting in the streets. And that's what you get.
Yeah.
It seems as if they just need to be able to continue the funding. You know, if they don't seize property from people, how are they going to make money?
Good question. I would say that, there's a lot of uncertainties, and that's unfortunate. You would have thought that one of the key ideas of the implementation of MRTMA would have been our leadership making certain that we didn't go down this path, that there was clarity of some kind.
Well, yeah, that's why we elected the people we elected, right?
It's odd that there has not been a...
And I believe the AG, her solution is that the legislature will clear things up. Is that correct? Have I heard that correctly? She's just sending it kicking it on over to the legislature, Jim, because they'll speedily work things out as they always do.
They've got it. They'll fix it in lame duck. Don't worry.
That is a real concern. There's a serious push to open up the MMA and the MRTMA.
It always is.
And some of the discussion has seriously been an increase in the excise tax and the MRTMA of 2%, in which that additional revenue would then go to police.
The ones who want to go out and continue to enforce it. What the fuck is wrong here?
Well, but Steve, if we give them the 2%, they'll stop.
I can tell you right now with what I saw this past weekend with it all, I know exactly what they're thinking. I know exactly what they're doing. And we're going to have more felony arrests this weekend. I guarantee it. They're calling everything with marijuana a felony now. That's what they're doing. Just like Bill Schuette said, when you're outside of compliance with the MMMA, it's a felony. They're just doing the same shit now, except we have the people in place that we wanted to be in place. And hell, they're doing the same fucking thing, Jim. Sad. It's really sad, and they should all feel shame.
Well, what does everybody else say about this? Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I think when we didn't put on the ballot referendum the removal of marijuana from Schedule 1, we fucked up. Yeah. And I've seen it in every country in South America where they have failed to take marijuana off of the Schedule 1, off the controlled substances list. The industry has failed. The medical industry has failed. The hemp industry has failed. Unless it's removed from Schedule 1, you will always be a felon. You will always default back into the Controlled Substances Act. And you and I, brother, will have criminal defense work until we're grayer and older than we already are. And I think that we should fight this Schedule 1 in the court, as we're doing with the Supremes. We should fight it in the ledge, as Jamie's doing, and others. But I think that if you really want to make a significant change, you're going to have to do another ballot measure and amend the Controlled Substances Act, because as long as marijuana is a controlled substance for all criminals.
He is right. He is absolutely 100% right. And I was thinking things were going to go the other way because they legalized hemp.
I am not a criminal. I might look like a criminal, but I'm not a criminal. I shouldn't be treated as a criminal because I use medical marijuana.
It's a crime, Alan.
I'm not a criminal.
You're committing a crime just sitting there smoking one.
What would a police officer say? Would the police officer say?
Well, I'm going to arrest you, sir, for VCSA and violation of the federal code.
Federal code.
It's going to be fucked up.
Yeah.
We are going to start to experience, just like when everybody was all happy that medical marijuana got legalized and arrests went way up because everybody came out. Everybody started coming out with it.
It was a good plan.
Well, they lured them right out with it.
Oh.
And that's what they've done with legalization. Let's get everybody comfy. We'll get some people driving around with a few pounds, and we're going to arrest them. We're going to call it all felonies now. That's what we're doing. Anybody over 5 ounces, we're calling it a felony, like it or not. Let's let them fight it out in the courts.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Are you ready for the battle, Michael? Because it's coming. We got a lot of cases coming. We got a lot of motions to file. We're back in it. We're going to have some other people come in and run the business section of things because we're going to be busy with the criminal end of things, as we ever were. You watch and see.
I mean,
we're going to have 2 more felony cases from the weekend. Shit like this. You watch and see.
all right. Let's hope not. I'm just saying, you know, it's terrible that something like that would happen. You'd expect it to be a little bit, you know, done differently, expected to, as it should have been. And I don't know what to say. Jamie, what are your thoughts on any of this? You got any?
Yeah, it's the enforcement approach is excessive and unnecessary.
I mean, we are in. I mean, the state is still currently locked down to some extent. And they are so overly concerned with this plant. It's like, are they afraid to deal with the serious issues at hand in this state? So we're going to go after marijuana. Okay, we know there's a lot of fucking problems going on, and everybody hates the governor, and everybody hates the attorney general, and we got so many problems here. Let's go after marijuana. That'll be our solution. When in doubt, let's just go after marijuana hardcore. Where's Stecker from Pam? Tell him to put out the notice to all the cops.
Get him in the boat. Get him
We're
in the boat.
gonna anything over 5 ounces, we're calling it a felony VCSA. Let's go. That's what's going on.
So there's precedent for looking at this, approaching this civilly, and how it can play out in that manner as opposed to taking this, the old raid and arrest and taking property and all that kind of stuff approach, which is
that's their preferred method.
And there's also some examples done locally where questionable activity was taking place, and they told them to stop, or we're going to put a lock on the door for a year of your building. And activity stopped, and there didn't have to be all the costs and excessive, dramatic, unnecessary overreach involved. And even though they don't, these state police and like this new agency has never taken the mellow kind of approach or civil approach to anything, they can.
They're just doing what the law allows them to do. That's the end of the day. That's what they're doing.
I'll tell you, I thought, my fantasy was that the, if they started up with this kind of shit like they're doing now, like they did back then where, state police said, okay, we're in charge of the MMA. We're going to anoint ourselves to be the ones that are in charge. And we're going to be the enforcers of it, even though we have absolutely no training experience in any of this and don't even know what we're talking about. And that whole charade of enforcement, charade in interpretation, charade and there's no case law that anyone could have fair notice of before you're going to arrest them, that kind of behavior, interpretation would be criminalized. You know what I mean? Like that would be criminalized. We're not going to let the government abuse people after they've passed a law. In fact, the purpose of the recreational law was to slap back and proclaim unequivocally that all that other shit that they abuse people for, fuck it, we're going medical. In fact, Michigan, one of the unique states, was a unique state in that the legalization community and the recreational community were unified. Not all states are like that. And it wasn't so much that their interests of recreational commercialization at the expense of patients or caregivers were that's usually the debate, and I can understand as we see how medical's kind of being, less of a priority. It doesn't mean they're not going to be, patients aren't going to have a place to find their cannabis, but just less of a priority, the excise tax and et cetera, in the direction of things moving recreationally. But the point is that the unification was that the MMA did, even though the interpretation of it was made by the antagonists and ultimately resolved by the Supreme Court, it didn't go far enough, and people were still subject to all the penalties. So that everyone got behind the recreational laws to stop this, right? And of all the things that happened, would be, if it happened in 2008 and 2010, Bill Schuette was elected into office, we would have expected the same kind of stuff with the MTRMA. But we've got nothing. There's no guarding of, there's no suggestions of, there's no even inclination that any of what we would expect to be basic interpretation and consideration of the plant itself would be, at this stage. It's virtually, it's remarkable. It is truly remarkable that it's still going on. And this doesn't happen by accident. This is a leadership issue. I'm just going to say it right there. Like, the still kicking indoors and rating like it's Schedule 1 is a leadership issue. The fact that any local communities are forfeiting property, seizing cars. Forget legalization of marijuana. We've got a U.S. Supreme Court case that says it can't happen. It's like nothing happened. The worst part about it is the worst part about it is that in the nicest way you could say what went wrong with the MMA was that you had 70, 80 years of the greatest propaganda campaign that ever existed beat into our culture, resurrected and beat into us after Nixon, implemented as a methodology going forward and turning into a revenue stream for
the
local
bill
communities.
Of 1994
local communities
really came on strong then.
Who was behind that, Steve?
Sloppy Joe Biden.
But with all that being said,
sad.
Going into this this next phase, nobody would have expected that it would be a tabula rasa, blank slate, that we were going to redesign what this interpretation is. Like the idea would be like there would be a slant of some kind, a protection of some kind, or some guidance of some kind. The main point I want to make is that even if you were to say they've been brainwashed, propaganda, wired to think a certain way, and this goes from the law enforcement community all the way up that connection of parts in the criminal justice system, judges, prosecutors, etc. And the abuse of all that taking place. Now that we have the recreational law and we've got new leadership and its implementation is critical, nothing's changed. There's no leadership. Like there should be some education. There should be some memorandums of law. There should be some Michigan State Police updates. There should be Ken Stecker going around the state like he did for
He just
Bill
wants
Schuette,
to enforce.
to Bill Schuette saying this is how we're going to interpret it. Remember that they had the
clear the air.
Right. So I mean, even if you're going to take a certain interpretive position, at least educate and train. Put some some in perspective into the police forces. Memorandums.
Now, I did talk to a chief last week, and he was very, he used to enforce the marijuana quite a bit, much like I did when we were road officers and stuff. And I never thought that he would ever change his views on it. And in talking to him, he was starting to tell me about, I'm taking the department in a more progressive direction. We're going hands off. He says it's hard with some of the officers, but we're just telling them, it's legal now. We got to do other things. And so I was glad to hear that from him, because I think about what things I might be doing right now, just not in just regards to marijuana, but just if I had a department right now and I was chief, what would I be doing? And the chief I spoke to was starting to do very similar things to what I was thinking. So that was good to hear on one front, but you got a lot of departments out there. That was one chief from one municipality in the state who I thought would be a hard one to turn, but he's doing what he needs to do to be successful in policing in his area. And
one problem I've seen in this past year is very few MSP legal updates. In the past 4 or 5 years, we were used to seeing 20 to 30 MSP legal updates.
Yeah, we used to read them at roll call all the time to our guys.
Yeah. Pardon me. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve. But anyway, we have not had a single legal update on MRTMA come from the MSP, and they're the ones who are supposed to be enforcing it. As a matter of fact, in the past 2 years, I think we've probably had less than 10. And that's the real problem, that we're not educating the police to keep up with the law.
Well, sorry, Alan. I was just trying to add some color to your commentary, but I won't do that again.
What do you mean?
Okay, thank you.
What did you do?
Alan took a jab at me because I inserted some commentary into his about the legal updates.
Well, is that what happened, Alan?
I don't know. I was trying to talk, and I couldn't complete a thought because Steve started talking.
We're going to take a break, Tommy. We're going to break.
Right, don't worry about it.
And we're going to sort it out.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
This is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees TV. Relief in Wayne is a very large dispensary, and they have 2 separate sides. Although they service medical patients only at the moment, their plan is to open up the other side of the dispensary to allow for adult use or recreational. It'll be really interesting to see how, as the years progress, Relief grows into their space. It's a massive location, and there's a lot of good things that can be done there. If you're interested in having your product or facility reviewed, or even advertising with Planet Green Trees TV, reach out to us. www.planetgreentreestv.com. So folks, Amanda Joslin here with the Amanda Report, signing out. Until next time, stay safe. Hey everyone, it's Amanda Joslin here with the Amanda Report, powered by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees TV. Alright, so picture this if you will. You go to your local provisioning center or you just hook up with your caregiver and you have a nice big old sack of Mary Jane. So you're very excited, you get home, you get it all out, you start getting in there, getting your hands dirty. And then what you do is you're left with the stem. So today we're going to talk about what do we do with all of those leftover stems. Sticks and stems are inevitable. You can have a beautiful bag of ganja and you're still going to be left with some stems. So every part of the cannabis plant can be used for something. That's why it's such a great little gift to us all. And so there are three main uses that we can collect and use stems for later. The first reason would be to make it into some canna butter. The second reason is we could use it to infuse into some topicals. And then the last would be some cannabis tea. You should absolutely not smoke your stems. Not only will it not get you high, but also, you guys, it's going to give you a monster headache, and it's probably going to tear up your throat and make you cough a great deal. So, can you smoke stems? I guess you could, but please don't. So the name of the game is to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So start saving those stems. What kinds of things have you done with your stems? Give us a comment below. This is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, powered by Komorn Law, aired on Planet Green Trees, signing out.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
Hi, my name is Jim Powers with Michigan Parents for Compassion. You are watching Planet Green Trees. Planet Green Trees is the #1 podcast for marijuana and marijuana-related discussion in the state of Michigan. We've been at it for over a decade. There's no greater place to get your news, and there's no greater host in that we have attorney Michael Komorn, who you should absolutely call and contact for all of your legal needs. Planet Green Trees is the #1 marijuana show in the state of Michigan. Tune in to Planet Green Trees every Thursday at 8 p.m.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
All right, so we're back, I guess.
We're back.
Everyone is back in position. And let's go through some of these topics. How's that sound? Everyone game for that?
I do love a good topic.
All right, so new Michigan legislation would strengthen consumer protections around cannabis products.
How's that?
How's that?
Does it involve opening MRTMA?
Because they're gonna.
I'm
just gonna make it all illegal completely again.
Well, obviously, when you have a new industry, one of the topics that the state can spend time, energy investing in is the consumer protection and regulations to protect when the industry is brand new. So this is the type of thing that will probably get a lot of legs and appeals to a lot of people, because I think even because as it goes, the legislature did not pass the recreational law, and to ask them to fix it is silly because they didn't pass it in the first place. It doesn't need fixing. It was passed. We needed an attorney general that's going to enforce it. So I think this is just one of the many ways in which we're going to see the, different attempts and strokes to try to knock the door open so amendments can take place. We already saw the introduction of a bill that was going to require caregivers, if I'm not mistaken, to register wherever they are. It didn't get a lot of legs, and ultimately the bill was withdrawn, but that doesn't mean it won't come back. Here we go. We've got new Michigan legislation would strengthen consumer protection. The Michigan Regulatory Reform Committee is set to hold a hearing over new legislation that would clear the air concerning consumer protections around cannabis products. Senator Kurt Vonderwall of Grand Rapids, what do you know? A Republican would amend the current Cannabis License Act to make requirements that cannabis licensees have proper insurance or financial backing in case someone is injured by one of their products.
One of their dangerous products.
One of their products is key, because think about the vitamin E. Think about the bulletins that come out with the recalls. Okay, I mean, who would have thought that somebody would, file a suit or something like that against, if you're injured, quote unquote? How are you going to get injured, first of all? But secondarily, why would we have that?
Here you go.
Why
You
is
might
that a
trip over a
guideline?
plant.
And also,
Go ahead, sir, keep going. Keep going, please.
and Jamie, is it true that you guys had to also agree to some type of union thing with your staff well, not yours specifically, but with dispensaries? Was that part of anything?
It didn't amount to anything.
Oh, that might have been an IPSI. Oh, okay.
No, that was the governor, like, made some type of statement about there has to be some type, I forget exactly what the details are, I don't want to try to discuss it, but some kind of discussion with the unions, but that never really materialized.
So here you go. Do you think this is
Okay.
do you think this has anything to do with it still being Schedule 1? It could or could not. But I would say that this whole argument being made here in this article would maybe not be made if it was not Schedule 1. But the introduction of this bill would require cannabis businesses to file proof of financial responsibility for liability or bodily injury resulting from the manufacturing, distribution, transportation, or sale of marijuana or marijuana-derived products, and spells out what the proof of responsibility can be. Applicants must also include a liability insurance policy, something not required right now. So what you have here is a automatic, whatever the cost of doing business is, an increase now that doesn't otherwise exist there.
It's over-regulation.
Furthermore, there is nothing to which anybody can point a finger that would require this to be needed. However, they make an attempt to dirty the conversation and the ideas here. There have been a number of recalls of marijuana products in Michigan in recent months. Recalls, but not meaning the system's working. They're recalling it. No one's gotten sick.
Right.
Last year, a lung illness linked to tainted cannabis vaping cartridges. Not true. It was e-cigarettes with vitamin E, primarily sold in the black market. Again, not effectuating the need for this legislation. Not pointing to a place and time where this has happened within the regulated market. And if they wanted to create some consumer protection issues and fix those for the black market, be my guest, right? That's what he really is pointing out is the problem here. And that's his words, use the word black market, not mine, or call it Senator Kurt von der Wall. In August, officials ordered a recall of pre-rolled joints that may have been licked by an employee, sparking fears of the spread of COVID. And I promise you, if anyone caught COVID from a licked marijuana joint, we would have heard about it, don't you think? Don't you think that would have... You know, it is exactly like the fear-mongering of the need to find and get a per se number because everyone driving with cannabis in the system is dangerous and blah, 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 because you can point to the data that doesn't support that. And that the studies done by the police themselves don't support that. Yet here we are trying to regulate and pass laws to catch people, you know, with cannabis in their system. This stepping back from 30 feet to me is the classic example of everything that's wrong with the existing legislators that are making decisions about cannabis. There's nothing in here that makes any sense. Yet this type of bill, the way it says and talks and creating liability insurance and causing money, we're going to get as much fucking money as we can. There's probably some liability insurance lobbyists that came in and said, I got a great idea. We're going to get some money for the insurance industry, and I'm going to...
That's exactly what happened.
I'm going to pay off Kurt von der Wall, who ironically is from Grand Rapids, a town that has many, many insurance companies, and probably will go work for them when he finishes off his term. But this is kind of the nonsense here, and this kind of thing plays to the ears and fears of an uneducated legislature that's making decisions about cannabis. Please, somebody argue with me.
Oh, we're protecting the consumer by over-regulating the market.
Yeah, because so many bad things happen to people that cannabis users over the years when it was illegal. I mean, it was just rampant. The ERs were filled with people that were having adverse effects from marijuana and things.
Let's do this. Let's play devil's advocate as a group. What kind of regulations and safety concerns could we come up with, if any, that would better protect consumers for medical or recreational? Jeff, you start.
Sorry about that. I had you on mute. What protections for recreational?
No, well, we're laughing at this bill that was introduced, which says, oh, we're going to get consumer protections for
protect
for
people
businesses,
against marijuana.
protect the consumers from the marijuana businesses by liability insurance and blah blah blah. And it's probably a insurance lobbyist that got this bill passed. But the other, like, what if any could you come up with if you had to try to be creative, if any, that would be legislator Jeff could come up with that would better protect the consumer from the marijuana industry's sales?
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but even in the most advanced and most progressive markets, think Colorado, Canada, California, Washington, 80% of the marijuana being consumed is being consumed on the black market, and it's precisely because of overregulation coupled with a continued placement of the plant on Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act. So you want to put better, higher quality, non-black market product in the hands of consumers will back off. I mean, the answer is still don't overregulate and take the plant off the controlled substances list. That's the highest leveraged activity that anybody can engage in. Otherwise, what are the dangers to the consumer? Heavy metals, testing.
I mean, no worse than the tomato.
What's also interesting? What's also interesting is that when those bulletins do come out, there's so much time that's lapsed that I don't know any patient that would still have the medicine that they're trying to recall. Do you see what I'm saying? If it's still on the shelf, yes. But how many people have taken, and first of all, it's not dangerous, okay? But the recalls that they come up with maybe is a better way to phrase it. But I'm saying that, if I purchase it from a dispensary, a pack of gummies, let's say, they're going to be gone certainly within a couple of days.
Yeah.
So.
What are we saying?
So the point is that the recalls are a little, they're not very timely. If they're supposed to be put out, and there are truly recalls, then it should, happen a little faster, especially if they have all these testing requirements. And the idea was, to capture that before a bunch of people consumed it, right?
True, but I think the most, I don't know, I think an important point of all this is that the cry for these additional regulations is not based upon,
anything real?
A reason. And, at the end of the day, it's not.
The reason is someone spent money on a lobbyist to further their agenda.
Okay. But I'm saying there's no, and what's not being really discussed is the actual impact on our society after the legalization of marijuana. Where's the stories about that? All that shit about how dangerous it is and how, crazy things are going to be.
Well, people are going to be crashing cars all over the place.
Crashing cars all over the place. You got some of these sheriffs saying things like, we do on average 5 mental health calls per day. Legalizing marijuana is going to increase that. You would hear if that was actually true. Obviously the answer to that is, why are sheriffs doing mental health calls? And certainly that's not a reason to not legalize marijuana. But where's the negative side of it, Jamie? What's the word on the street in the circles that you run in the north there? Is this part of the conversation? Like, if you're hearing from the cities or what their positions are taking, like, yeah, maybe that's what we used to think, but now, we realize that the experiment so far, the experiment here of legalization, does not, synchronize with all that we were told and all that we feared and all that we were, scared of and all the things that we were told. Is that I mean, I'm not talking within our own community of people that think freely, but just generally speaking, you got any thoughts on that?
I don't know if that's happening anywhere.
Where people are talking like that?
People are talking like that now.
Right, because what I'm saying, I guess the idea here is the impact of legalization. When is someone gonna, when is part of the discussion to be genuine and intellectual about it would be to actually analyze the negatives of the MMA, if any, that they can identify. What was the harm to the public? And what, if any, harms would exist after legalization? And really contemplate and try to identify, now that it's legal and it was been illegal for so long, let's look at the last year and a half, 2 years to really try to get a grip on, what has changed now, how things gotten worse, if at all, and if not, maybe we should be looking at this whole thing differently, because I think you can't be kicking indoors over plant, shooting dogs over plant, sticking guns in kids' faces over plant, stealing dildos over plant, robbing the house blind over plant, stealing, kids' toys and, kids' bikes and
ruining people's
tools,
lives.
ruining their lives over a plant, unless you conceptually believe it to be this terrible thing that these people have to be tortured and punished because it's so dangerous that unless we stop it, the rest of the world is going to be infected by this and the world is going to be terrible. Therefore, we must shoot the dogs. We must look through your underwear drawer. We must. But now it has happened. All that has been, fuck you, it's legal now by the people.
They don't care.
There should have been reparations. I think that's probably offensive to say in some places, but I think that and if not, like spiritual reparations, like a letter of apology. We were wrong. We're sorry we fucking destroyed your lives all these years. Instead, we're going to do this. We're going to invite all of you that lost the war, right? Hey, Nazis, you want to come over and that's a little extreme too. Let me say, I don't pick any other one. Hey, Russia, you want to come sit here as we decide how we're going to divide up? They were there actually. I take that back. Okay, so a couple bad examples, but think about it. Like after
China.
Well, after World War I, Germany, come on, and we'll give you, whatever you want. You didn't lose World War I, where, and come on, you can decide all the fucking outcomes here of how we're going to divide things up. I mean, it's just not.
You didn't really lose World War I as much as gain World War II, right?
But I'm saying, right, and there wasn't the same kind of intention to try to have a peace and who's going to be in control, and they didn't say to Germany after World War II. Here's the keys back to your governance. Go ahead and do it. You know what I mean? It wasn't really like that.
No.
And you can do it however you want to.
The country was in complete shambles.
Okay, but the point I'm saying is the principles of the war on drug, the spirit of the war on drug, the jackboots, the raiding, the similar paramilitary kind of things were lost the war. The legality of them to do it, putting aside might over right, but actually being a state of laws, a country of laws.
Well, I think we need to do the same thing because I believe what happened after World War II is other countries came in to begin to help to rebuild Germany, and we have to help to rebuild law enforcement.
But they didn't say, come sit at the table here.
No, it's not up to them.
And my point is the decisions that are being made of the interpretation of MRTMA are akin to inviting the losers of the war, the people that were mentioned there,
agreed,
have been the masters,
the aggressors
of how this dangerous plan is going to be a method of us to. I mean, that is really the most offensive thing here, and I would even say.
But we
here's something else. Forget all the other shit, Jamie. I may have come to another. Just that point of her trying to make that I've got all these stakeholders nonsense, and everyone, got the point in. And those are talking points. It makes it seem like, oh, we got everyone involved here. But it's really like, the winner of the war being forced to sit at the table with the losers of the war and listen to them help decide.
No, dictate, rather.
How it's going to be going forward.
Influences from prosecutors and police, as it was, with Schuette, and not with the cannabis community and the culture and the intent of the law and those types of things that we expected.
So what I'm saying to you, this is, this in retrospect, and I feel like it took a little while to identify some of the emotions from that beyond just not being included, right, in that group. But the inclusion of those that she maintained was the basis of a, multi-interested, group of people. It was an offensive gathering of people. Like the idea that these others would be there, putting myself aside, and they would have any say at all is the problem. Period. Nobody thought
they forced the issue in the first place to take it to the ballot box and change things, and now they have input on how to fuck it up.
Well, that's my point. Do you think Pat Miles was going around saying things like, well, if MRTMA passes, don't worry about it. We're going to have the Michigan State Police. We'll get Ken Stecker and Pam there for sure. They'll help me figure this out. Get Kim Worthy, who's always been a drug warrior. We'll get, everybody and anybody, all prosecutors who can sit on this table here. I'm Pat Miles. Okay? I mean, that would be expected, right? That would be expected. Because...
that would be expected.
Because cannabis community didn't do anything for him. The law may have passed.
Right. That's right.
The law may have passed, but he's the Attorney General. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
he's the big shot.
And he almost lost the race there at the convention if it wasn't for blah blah blah. But he won, and he doesn't give a crap. He owes nothing to them. He won it on his own merits and stuff. But did anyone think that a campaign messaging was, when I get into office, I'm going to get together all the people that lost this war, that all the people that voted to pass this law, that got me elected as well, interest will not be at the table of this interpretation. And that's the campaign slogan. Would anyone have followed along or voted or showed up in fucking January for 9 hours as the Democratic Party did everything they possibly could to get people to leave, hold the time of the vote, to worst weather in the world? What's his face from Reverend Steve drove 90 hours to get down there. John Schlicker. This is insane what people did. It's insane. Insane. And to say to them, okay, because of the passage of this law and myself following that wave, I'm going to invite the police and Ken Stecker, who's responsible for the crime lab scandal. He's responsible for the... every bad interpretation. He was the propagandist. He was like the Joseph Goebbels of the Schuette administration. Minister of propaganda. He was out doing the, clearing the smoke.
Yeah, clearing the smoke.
Let me make a quick quote. Is it time to get off?
Mm-hmm.
All right, never mind.
We got an early day tomorrow.
We do. All right, so listen.
Hey,
go ahead.
Esteban, what did you guys have for your spread tonight?
What's that?
What was your spread tonight?
We just
John
did
Schlickler.
We did the Princess platter, Princess Mediterranean platter, which is always a winner.
Solid choice.
So next week we'll have to switch it up to something else. Maybe we'll go back to Buddies next week. I don't know. Always good though.
Did you present your dessert teas, your special dessert teas tonight?
Jim got me so stoned tonight that I forgot to get at the dessert teas. I started them too late, and then the show started, and, well, I've been excited about a lot of the topics tonight, so I forgot about the dessert teas is really what happened.
Well,
So we're saving
I
them for you
also,
next week, Amanda.
Okay, well, I have from House of Dank some gummies for you.
Oh, excellent. So either I'll get them from you next week or
Yeah,
before
I'll
that.
see you
All right.
either. Yeah, probably Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay, sounds good.
Jamie, any final thoughts here? What do we? I didn't mean to turn to a complaining show, and I was trying to keep it.
No. I guess on the bright side, I think that there's ways to move the situation more in our favor. We've been missing from the conversation for a while, and
well, do you think so, Jamie? That may be true and optimistic, but at the end of the day, you mentioned earlier some of the concerns that one might have about the lame duck session, the opening of the act, etc. What do you really think is going to happen there, if anything?
well, I'm concerned about that. I'm hoping that we can appeal to those working on it to say that there hasn't been legitimate stakeholders in the discussion, and this type of a thing needs to be heavily scrutinized to make sure we're not peeling back any rights potentially, and that it's going to take more than just this session, and the fact that we would tee it up without that kind of input into the lame duck session, in which there can't be any public discussion or input into the process. There's already discussion of increasing the excise tax to be able to give money to the police, and the fact that you even are looking at changing a People's Act that's just a few months old in some ways, and without addressing the issues of the lack of implementation and incorrect interpretations of the MMA in the past. It's an affront, and we have to do what we can do to stop this, and at least move the discussion in the next session with people at the table who should be there discussing this stuff.
Right here.
Whether that is going to happen, I don't know, but that's what we're making a lot of people aware of it, and hoping that collectively a bunch of individuals and groups and things like that, we can hopefully move this in the next session.
I mean, does it matter though? Do you really think that at the end of the day that the people that you're talking about, the concerns that we have generally about caregiving and the non-regulated market, do we really believe that that's an argument that anyone is can understand and educate? To understand and fully understand that what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like
that's one side of it. The other thing is it's the way that it's going down is it's a lot of things are just being sugarcoated. A lot of people don't understand the deeper implications. And when they are aware of it, that we think it'll make a difference. And the goal is to stop a supermajority.
Yeah,
it's going to take a lot of other people working on it. But as more people learn about what's going on here and what the threats are, there's more and more people fired up about trying to contact their lawmaker when the time comes.
Isn't there though concern though, because like the community that we're talking about that have interest in anything that we're saying is really a small group of people. It certainly isn't the well-financed business players, right? It's not them. I think at the end of the day, getting the consent and or understanding from the business community to legislate away, open up the act. They weren't around. They didn't go through what we all went through. They didn't understand the things that we did. And yet they're maybe the ones that are signing off on behalf of the quote unquote cannabis community, and that's all they need. You know what I mean? That may be enough. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just an administrative move. We just have to do this to kind of line things up. It just makes more sense. Get this insurance thing. Yeah, people buy it. So there needs to be a concerted effort to get the truth. Different information to the people who are going to make the decisions. That's where it is. It's a serious effort. It's a very strong push.
I hear you.
But people do start understanding when they hear the other side of the story. I have noticed that. It's worth an effort. It's worth trying to get it out there and talk to the lawmakers.
I hear you. All right, so what else? Jeff, what do you have to say? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, deschedule.
I think we need some consumer protection and regulation of the regulation costs of operating these businesses. That when it costs $70,000 an application cost to start a new business, that's just way out of line for what the business entails, and that needs regulation.
Yeah. You need cannabis protection, like not necessarily like what we would call consumer protection as much as just the, fucking protection for just, I mean, listen, everyone should be concerned because the bills that are competing with the expungement bills are the allowing legislators who are holding office to have a spouse or relative where they would normally be disqualified to be able to hold a marijuana license. That seems to be the priority of the legislature. While there are people that are still in prison, there's no expungement in the future. Well, I know of 3 cases this past week that involved felony charges arising out of things that people understood to be no longer illegal. But again, Jamie's going to find a diplomatic path here, I think, right, Jamie? Are we looking at another 12 years of interpretive
it's going to be hell.
Fucking nonsense. I think what we would be saying this time back in the old days, like, we got to get rid of the Attorney General. We got to get a leader in there that's going to, like, not do this and is going to make sure it doesn't happen. I mean, right? I mean,
I think those were our exact words.
there was a point in time where nothing other than, Planet Green Trees and the blog talk radio days, like, there was just, like...
Fuck Bill Schuette.
What's the measurement I'm thinking of? It's called a, what? It's, bale, like a bale of... That's the way they describe cannabis sometimes, but there's bales of it,
Bales.
And I'm saying, I'm talking bales of
Dangerous.
fucking, shooty shit talking, because every day he was just picking on him, blah, 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 and it was the conversation all the time. I mean, lead a law enforcement agent, brand new law. How's it going to be enforced? He's going to decide. In our world, legislators going to decide. But anyway, so what do you think, Jamie? Is that how it's going to be? I think that was the question I was trying to find out. Are you going to, you think it's going to be like that, or do you think there'll be an actual solution somewhere?
So no, I hope that the effort that gets put forward is successful in staving off harsh consequences to these people's acts. It is a huge concern.
Yeah. All right. Alan, what do you say? Final thought on this, Alan. What do you see the history coming? Do you think we're going to have a lot of cases, as Steve predicts, or do you think this is just a little uptick in because of boredom or something?
No, I think Steve's right. I think that cannabis users are still low-hanging fruit that are ripe for police to pick for policing for profit, and I hope the current intake of cases stops, but I don't think it will.
Okay. Do you think, what do you think the court's response is going to be? Do you think that there will be judges who say things like, this is a fucking joke, it's recreational? What the fuck are you doing?
Especially given MRTMA and the coronavirus crisis, I think there are going to be many judges who don't want to waste their precious court time on marijuana cases when they have more serious cases in their mind that need to come before them.
Even though their precious court budget depends on the determination of probable cause and the continued listing of marijuana and the controlled substances, come on.
It funds those courts. It funds them. Yes,
Yeah,
they're going to
low-hanging
continue to
fruit.
let it do it. They're going to continue to let it fly. From John Schlicker, if I may.
Please.
He sent me a flyer for the Northeast Michigan Normal River Trip.
Oh, right.
Sunday, September 13th at 11 a.m. at the Osable River McKinley Bridge to 4001 canoe and kayak rentals available at Hinchman. Is it Arches or Acres? One of the two. Meeting at 10 a.m. on the river by 11 a.m. Strongly encourage canoes and kayaks only.
All right. Jamie,
That sounds like fun.
it does. Jamie, are you going to be able to get on the Savitt guy sometime soon that we can maybe get his and also the Ingham County prosecutor?
And those are good discussions.
I'm just curious because it's a different world now. It seems as if, and I would say that I don't know. I mean, we have at least the incumbent to talk to. I'm very interested to see what her take is on some of this stuff, and you know what I mean, and see what, if any, thoughts she has. So her, and also, have you guys have had her on? Or you did just have her on?
We didn't have her on Jazz Cabbage, but the Democratic Cannabis Caucus helped facilitate a discussion with all three of the active progressive candidates, and we brought on the one progressive candidate who lost, Kim Worthy, to help out with the discussion, and that was that really ended up being a help to the whole thing. She did a great job of kind of talking about their abilities once prosecutors with helping out a lot of people with past convictions. The discussion got into the cost of looking at old cases and difficulty of designating resources to take care of things that are over with now, that are that people got screwed over, and there should be justice, but it's just difficult to do that. And then there are organizations that are trying to help out with that and help to raise funds for that type of thing.
Sure.
And then we talked about those who are in jail and the stuff that's in the pipeline now, at least be made, immediate priority with immediate resources. And everybody seemed to agree that they were going to look at these things that she was discussing.
But how are they going to? They have no. They may want to, and think about how they're really going to be able to.
Well, you should have Victoria Burton Harris on, because she explains the processes and what's available to them. So I wouldn't do as nearly as good of a job. So she is an excellent interview. It's too bad that she didn't win, because that would have been great for Wayne County, but maybe next time. Yeah, she would be also very good to have on here.
Sure. And I would be interested in hearing some of this stuff. But all right, that's good. So you can maybe we'll help out with that. So all right, so everyone had enough for right now. We got a busy day tomorrow. We got to go up to fucking and argue about marijuana, St. Clair County, from a case from 2013.
Yeah, we're going up to do battle tomorrow. Michael, Alley, and I.
It's weird. It's weird.
I'm still?
No.
It's weird. This is in the exact era of this other case that we had called Hensey and Shattuck, and the list of the era is of the exact same time. This is when these guys. So it's 2020, 21. These guys are gonna they're like in a couple years gonna be thinking, oh, remember back when we used to fucking do those raids? We pull someone over in a car, and we'd get the dog out in 10 seconds, and we'd ask a bunch of questions, and we would search every fucking property they've ever owned just because they may have been there. And do you remember how much fucking... Do you remember that year, 2013, 14, we brought in like $30 million? I mean, that's how I think it's going to be. But that's what I'm going back into. It's actually like a knock back in time in a way, because it encompasses this specific police force that I know all too well, and their unrelenting behavior as it relates to cannabis and raiding houses with weapons drawn like you're a military person. All right, that's enough. I can't take it. All right, anyone else want? Okay, everyone else? Okay, hearing no object. Amanda, final thoughts. Sorry. Speak.
No final thoughts other than speaking of John Schlickler. He's saying that it was he's saying hi to you, Michael, and to Jamie.
John,
So
we love you, brother. We love you, brother.
Sure you guys
Try to be on that
saw
canoe trip if we can. Steve will be there for sure. I'm sending him as a for
That's
certainly.
awesome.
I got projects going on at the house.
He does. All right, we're calling it.
I'm calling it.
Calling it. That's it.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.